అరుదు తాళపాక అన్నమయ్య పదములు.
Namaste and welcome to Tamrapatra Conversations. This is the sixth session of the Tamrapatra Conversations. Conversations between the choreographer, the scholar, and the producer of Tamrapatra. So we've been having conversations ahead of every Tamrapatra session and ahead of the upcoming session with Dr. Anita Ratnam, which is session 5 of Tamrapatra. Here we have for you Tamrapatra Conversations with me, Ananda Shankar Jayant, and Dr. Anupama Kylash, our scholar who's delineating each of the Annamacharya Sankeerthanas in such a beautiful way. Anupama, welcome once again to Tamrapatra Conversations. It's such a pleasure to have you here again. Listen to your erudition and scholarship. Thank you so much for who you
Thank
are.
you. Thank you.
Anupama, the upcoming session is on a very rare idea. It's on Andal. And you know what caught my attention is the whole the script of the song. It kind of it resonates as Tamil, because it says Yenta Chanu Vichitivo and it ends with Chudi Kudutta Nacharu. Of course, in Tamil it's Nachiyar, and he says Nacharu. You think there was this meeting ground of ideas, meeting ground of languages and syntax and things like that. Would you like to throw some light on how did Annamacharya sitting in Tirumala use the Tamil context, Tamil words? I mean, Andal I can understand because at that point of time there was no distinction in terms of geography. But language, and he used it in such a beautiful way. I would love to hear from you what you think on that.
Yes, Annamacharya's Telugu, because of him being from Kadapa, which is the Chittoor district, and it borders with Tamil Nadu. So there is a lot of influence, and there was a lot of interaction between the Tamil and Telugu cultures, with Tirumala being the melting pot of that whole interaction. So because of that, there is a lot, and also the Ramanuja Sampradaya, which is prevalent in Tirumala, and the Vaikana Sagama, the following of that. So, and because Annamacharya is a poet who strongly believed in the Vishishtadvaita philosophy, the Shatakopa Muni of Ahobila Matham, so all these connections, he's very, very closely connected with Tamil as a language and as a culture also, especially the Alvars. So he's deeply influenced by them. It's very, very obvious in his works. And in fact, he's considered to be an incarnation of Nammalvar, also as per legend. So there is a lot of Tamil in Annamacharya's Telugu words also. And scholars who have worked on the Sahityam aspect of it, they've identified it as Dravida Andhra. Okay. So it's a kind of mix. Like, for example, he uses words like Adiyala. Adiyala actually doesn't exist in Telugu, but in the Tamil language, it's kind of it means some kind of a landmark or a sign. So he uses that, and he uses a lot of link words which are actually Tamil in nature. Okay. For example, he says Emi Sodyam Vidiyu Nennanashcharyambu. Now, enna is a very typical Tamil word. Enna. So instead of to say what is surprising in this, he says Ennanashcharyambu. So you can see that there are a lot of Tamil words, and he uses Sobagula, Mogapula, Sobagulu. So the idea of Mogappu and the Molanulu, these are all very Tamil.
Very Tamil, very. But it has that overlap of Telugu. It has a kind of a meeting. And I think it comes also from the geography of the place. Yes. Because I think even now people speak like that.
There is that the district Chittoor district people talk. Sometimes you don't know whether it's Telugu or it's Tamil.
Exactly.
Because there is so much of Tamil in the Telugu that they speak.
So but my mother used to, say this. She used to say, "Pandu odi odi pai padipoindi." Pandu is a ball. Odi odi is Tamil. Odi odi pai padipoindi. Poi is Telugu. So it's kind of a meeting ground where I think that kind of, sharing of language happens.
Yes,
That's
yes.
very
And
interesting.
Nanchari is his own version of Nachyar.
Okay, so Nancharu. Does he use it in other places also? Are there other songs that he uses it in?
There are a couple of other songs which are clearly identifiable. One is a very famous song. It says Chudaramma Satulara Shobhana Padaramma Kudi Unnadi Pati Chudi Kuduta Nanchari. So the whole song goes like that.
So there are two, three other songs on Andal.
Oh yes. This is Chudi Kuduta Nanchari. There is another song in which he equates Alamelu Manga to Nancharu.
Okay.
And he says, Ammamma Emamma Alamelu Manga Nancharamma. He calls her.
Ammamma. That's a nice song. I remember that song. It's a beautiful
like
song.
An encoded Dashavatara.
Okay.
So he says the Lord has, taken so many avatars for you. He's done so much, but you're not, being very nice to him, he said. So
I think that's a lovely song to choreograph, isn't it? I think we have one more song up our sleeve now. Exactly. I think since we're talking of Andal and Nachyar, and I think it's now time to invite our choreographer for Tamrapatra session 5. Let's invite Dr. Anita Ratnam, who's going to be choreographing this beautiful piece on Chudi Kuduta Nachyar. Yes. Hello, Anita. Welcome to Tamrapatra Conversations. This is session 6, and this time you're on the other side. We are the host and you're the guest. How wonderful is that? Thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much for accepting to choreograph this exquisite Annamacharya Sankeerthana on your favorite goddess, Andal. Yes. And believe me, we are just waiting very eagerly. I think a lot of dancers are waiting very eagerly to see how you would look at Andal from the Telugu perspective. Telugu perspective. Tell me, Anita, how are you looking at it already? I'm sure you already have your choreography is almost probably done. So how did it feel to look at a Telugu script and talk of a Tamil goddess?
For me, Ananda and Anupama, to me, Annamacharya, and of course, yet to come would be Krishna Devaraya, right? Amukta Malida had not yet come. Yes. But in a sense, Annamacharya had actually given, in a sense, fulfilled lots of Andal's wishes. Because what she's doing with Perumal there is what she had written about. She wanted to kiss him, she wanted to hug him, she wanted to press him to her chest, never let him go, bind him and her with a garland, and she talks in such erotic terms, but it was always a longing. For her, she called out. And in her writings, as she called out, she starts with a lot of hope. In fact, the opening is she dares Manmada. She tells Manmada, you don't shoot that arrow into Perumal, then I won't wash my hair. I will remain dirty. You see, so in a sense, Manmada has answered her call, her challenge. And all that she says, my whole imagination is I'm thanking Annamacharya for what he has, because for me, he's of course Perumal's confidant and everything. He can enter, but he knows who she is. I mean, already her legend has grown, right? She's 8th century. This is already 15th century, and for the Vijayanagara kings, their sense of Vaishnavism, their very strong belief and pride in the idea of not just Vishnu, but also of nationhood through that kind of divine aura is so important. So all of Andal's unfulfilled wishes, and very interestingly, Anupama, when you talk of Brindavan and Radha, even for Andal, her final things is, where is Brindavan? Take me to Brindavan. Yes. She doesn't say, take me to Srirangam, because she knows the heart of her Krishna, where Krishna is in Vrindavan. Right. So, and she's already made references to the Ras in her Nachyar Tirumali. She talks about the 16,000 gopis. Right. Yes. So it gives a choreographer fantastic, scope. And the sort of very young, very teenage, very yearning, longing, and finally, almost a broken girl is now in her element, like, yes. I brought her here and I'm saying,
there she is, Miss Gorgeous.
She has spun circles around Venkatachalapati, who's so fond of her and who can't say no. Basically, He's got such a soft spot for her. And Annamacharya is like so curious. I mean, because we have to remember that by the 15th century, we've already had a lot of women's voices.
Yes.
A lot of women's voices have come cascading after Andal, you know, and we've already had Panduranga, Vithala. So we've had the Vaishnava deity, mostly Krishna, imagined in so many ways.
Yes.
And Annamacharya knows, I mean, the news is coming that, you know, and after all, we're talking of 15th century, we have 2 more centuries before Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and the culmination of the whole bhakti cult.
Yes.
So as time cascades, Anupama, you will agree, and also with the Telugu aesthetic of ornamentation and decoration, you know, Andal here, Annamacharya has given her the way he describes what she is doing and how the Lord is indulging her is actually a choreographer's dream, because you can actually, I can actually say, when she said Karpuram Narumo, Kamalapu Narumo, she can actually take Perumal's conch and actually smell it right there. She has that, she's right there with him, you know.
Right, right.
And for Annamacharya, it can be, I mean, of course, he's supremely confident about his Venkatachalapati, but he's also curious, a bit perplexed, because to create a dramatic arc, I can't have Annamacharya always in such a calm mood. I've got to have him. I've got to also get him a bit, you know, little, not anxious, but like, what's going on? He's forgetting everybody. Has she done a mandal to him or what? You know,
that's interesting. That's something we're looking forward to. That's very exciting.
Yeah, because the point is he's not, and so fine. So the way I've imagined it, I'm going to tell you, is I've imagined it as 3 characters, actors. There are 3 actors, because there are 3 actors.
Right.
There is Annamacharya, there's Andal, and there is Perumal.
Yes.
And I'm still plotting, you know, how one moves from one to the other. And you know that I approach things from my theater kind of, you know, perspective. And a lot of my work, Ananda, is kind of, it sort of builds slowly. You know, I like a lot of silence. I like to use the idea of one single source of sound, you know. So and if you, for anybody who's gone to Tirupati, you know, there's that long corridor.
Right.
Finally, you do everything, and there's one long corridor, you know. So how do you imagine an actor or the performer? What is the trajectory that they will take? You know, that is also is very important.
How would you, as a Neo-Bharatam practitioner, look at a traditional law which is so steeped in bhakti? And how have you approached this? You know, you're talking of silences, and I think Anupama will agree with me. Annamacharya is dense. You know, the poetry is dense. So how have you balanced these 2, you know, very different ideas?
So Annamacharya's poetry is dense. It's very descriptive, and it's very complete. So I don't think one can play too much with the Sahitya. The Sahitya says what it says.
Right.
But I have found spaces in between Pallavi and Charanam, and between the first part of the Charanam and the second part of the Charanam. You know, so those are the spaces in which sometimes Annamacharya can have like a personal monologue with himself. What is going? What is this? You know, like, what is this? What is going on? Like, he's talking to himself, like he himself doesn't understand. He's not only talking to Perumal.
That's wonderful.
You know, because
that's so interesting.
Yeah, he's trying to remind Perumal also, because, you know, Andal towards the end, she calls Krishna a thief and a liar. She says, what do you know of dharma? What do you know of dharma? You are promised to take care of everybody. You've not even replied to me. What do you know of dharma? You're a thief and a liar. So Annamacharya is trying to remind himself, you know, she's called him this. She's called him all this. And he's not, and he's still. So what I'm doing, Anupama Ananda, is I'm drawing from her text. I'm using Annamacharya's text, but I'm also fast forwarding. I'm drawing description of Andal, who's described so beauteously by Krishna Devaraya.
Yes.
Oh, wonderful.
Hair. And you know, the end of Amuktamalada, Andal's dream is fulfilled. They get married,
Yes.
and the Lord takes her away to enjoy her company. So really, her dream has been fulfilled in Telugu land. Basically, her dream in Tamil land has been fulfilled in Telugu land.
You know, this reminds me of what I say. I'm a Tamilian living in Telugu land, and I think
Right.
this line will agree. You will agree with this line. You know, when people ask me, where are you from? I keep telling everyone I'm Tamil by birth, but Telugu by soul. So I think that will work completely for this situation that you're talking about. That maybe Tamil, Andal, Amma, Tamil, but you had to come to Telugu land. No, but jokes apart, I thought the next question I wanted to address to both of you is, the texture of worship. I think I'll start with Anupama. Worship of Perumal or Venkateshwara in the Telugu Prabandha works, and I will come to Anita about how Andal has been dealt with in the Tamil works. So over to you, Anupama, for a short introduction on that. So
primarily, when we see, the worship of Lord Venkateshwara of the Tirumala or Venkateshwara of the Venkatam Hill, so we've had these, these sampradayas which have worked, like the Ramanuja Sampradaya, and then, of course, the Tamilians will be very familiar with the, the different branches of Vedanta Desikar's Sampradaya, and then Ramanujas, and this whole line. So the methodologies have been like varied, like how Vedanta Desikar, the highly Sanskritized worship, methodology, and then the very Tamil based Prabandha methodology of the Alvars. And in between these two, again, you have the Telugu Prabandha Sampradaya, like Krishna Devaraya's Sampradayam, in which he has used, even though it's a Prabandha style and it's very complex, the Telugu is very dense, but the methodology that he has used is also inclusive very much of Telugu legend, Telugu folklore, Telugu, situations, Telugu temperament. So the way he has, addressed the whole Venkateshwara Puja and the idea of and he has included the Devadasis there, and, them watching these priests go to the temple for worship. So there are so many very, very Telugu elements, but at the Prabandha level, there is so much of, similarity in the methodology. And with Annamacharya, the Venkateshwara worship has taken like so many trajectories. On one side, it is the Lord of the, of Tirumala, the Venkatapati of Annamacharya, whom, to whom there is Sharanagati, and then there is so many Bhakti Sankirtanas, then there are, Adhyatma Sankirtanas, where he says, my heart is the parrot, and, there is the Paramatma is there, he's Venkateshwara. So that kind of trajectory. And also he has taken the very same kind of treatment also that Andal takes when, in the Nachiyar Tirumari, when she's talking about to the clouds, when she says the Lord of the Venkatam Hill. So very, very similar, the Madana, the Madana Dushana, all these things directed towards Venkateshwara, Manmadha. So here there is a lot of overlap. Like, for example, there is one song where she says, he says, Valapula dadi vache vanitalara marundelagole yagajoche. So she says, that I'm under siege, I'm under attack, because Madana declares, he proclaims his arrival. And then she talks about all the different things, and then she talks about Lord Venkateshwara. So it is very interesting that when in the Shringara aspects, there is so much commonality between the way the Lord of the Venkatam Hill in Tamil and the Tiruvenkatapati of Telugu, there is so much there in the Shringara aspect. In the Adhyatma and in, in the Vairagya Sankirtanas, in the Bhakti Bodha, in the Sharanagata concept, in that there is a very typical Telugu trajectory that Annamacharya has taken, the way he addresses him, the legends connected to the Telugu land, the, the entry into Tirumala, how it's viewed through his eyes. So they're very different and they're very similar, to the extent that you really don't know where to demark, okay, this is the Telugu thing and this is the Tamil thing. there is so much of, combination of both the ideas there.
I think, Anita, you'd agree with me that, they're almost meeting at Tirumala, these
Yes.
two traditions. What
Well,
do you think?
that, and also, Ananda, I'll tell you, the Navatiripatis in southern Tamil Nadu owe their existence to the Vijayanagara kings.
Correct.
Right.
Okay, so because of, and so you can see already that the sense of now that Navatirupati temples are not very large. Some are really small and tiny, but they have been built and expanded and constructed with great care, great care. You can see a lot of not just Nayak sculpture, but you can see that Vijayanagara kind of men, a hair in a top knot, nice prosperous tummies because they're all Bhogapriyas.
Yes.
Okay.
That's a nice one.
Telugu Bhojana Priyas. Yes.
Bhojanapriyas. So you can see that already. You can see that the Vijayanagara, their generosity and their dedication to actually, construct temples, especially the Vishnu temple, was very significant in all the way down, because my ancestral temple of Tirukurungudi is almost near Kanyakumari. So we're really talking of, southern Tamil Nadu. Now, one thing is really interesting. You talked of Vedanta Desikar and his Sanskrit. His Prathama Sishya, Parashara Bhattar, has already in his, he's composed a very nice Taniyan for Andal, where he's already linked her to Neela Devi, to Lakshmi. So that is already in the 13th century, already the conflation of Andal as a consort has already happened.
Yes.
Okay, but all the kind of rituals that you're talking about, Anupama, there's so much of he's an Alankara Priya and he's Perumal is also Priya. So it's a very interesting, because Andal is still a living tradition. It's a living tradition in Srivilliputturu and in several Vishnu temples. She has a very prominent shrine.
Yes.
And to Tirupati, a Male comes from Srivilliputturu every year.
Yes.
And Male comes to Perumal. So that connection was established and I think cemented by the Vijayanagara kings.
Absolutely.
About Andal. Another thing I'm really, I want to bring out, and I think that the viewers will be very interested, is that Tirumala, Srivilliputturu, and my ancestral temple in Tirukurungudi are all known as Varaha Kshetra.
Yes, they were just coming to that. Yeah.
Yes. So you can pick up on that.
You were talking when we were chatting, when we were discussing all this, you were talking about, how important the other avatars are, Narasimha Avatara, Varaha Avatara. And all of us, when we go to Tirumala, we always do the Varaha Darshanam first.
Yes.
So, and there is a difference, Anupama, there is a difference in how the Narasimha Kshetrams are there in the Andhra territory or Telugu territory, and how the Varaha Narasimha Kshetrams are there in the Tamil territory. Is there some differences that you see, or is it not like that?
See, Varaha, when we say Varaha Kshetram, of course, they say after he rescued Bhumi.
Yes.
So Bhuma Devi said, I don't want you to go back to Vaikuntham, I want you to stay. So then he asks Garuda to bring the 7 hills from Vaikuntham.
Yes.
That's how Tirumala itself. So he was the original inhabitor of that Kshetram.
Yes.
And they say that he has a space near the temple tank, in one part of the temple tank. Not everybody goes to the Varaha Kshetram. People don't know that. So there is supposed to be a plate or some kind of an agreement between the Varaha Perumal and Srinivasa to say that, okay, you are now coming down to earth. This is my land. You do what you want, but you and I have a contract. No, actually, Varaha and Srinivasa actually have a contract.
Yes, they do.
Yeah. And the reason I like the Varaha metaphor is because that, Nammalvar, who influenced Annamacharya a lot, and including Andal, they have, Nammalvar has actually praised Perumal in one of the last Pasharams. He says, I see you as a black mountain between the curvature of the white tusks. You know, you stand like a giant white mountain. We tend to not look at the Varaha Avatara because it is a boar, it's a wild boar. You know, it's not as beauteous as Rama, it's not as beautiful as Krishna.
Yes.
But it's a very important avatar. Think about it, you know, it's about ecology. If you even wanted to take something and do it about ecology, we have those kinds of metaphors. Actually, Andal says you're a liar because you said even before your devotees call you, you will sense them, you know, and you will answer. So Nanna Titra, you know.
எவ்வளோ எந்த சனுவு ரொம்ப 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 இடம் ரொம்ப இடம்
அந்த அளவுக்கு she now is like Chellam, you know, like wrap yourself around him and not letting him go, to the extent that maybe Annamacharya is saying you're getting late for your duties, for your devotees, you know, you better extricate yourself, you know, from
ரொம்ப சனுவு ரொம்ப சனுவு ரொம்ப is Tamil, chanu is so there is a language meeting there. So
Sudi Kodutha Nachiyar, see, it's the Tamil, he's used Tamil.
Yes.
Yeah. And do you know, Andal says Chala Aragiyade. Yeah. She said Chala Aragiyade. She tells the Panchajanyam, Chala Aragiyade. Shankara, Chala Aragiyade. You are like a thing. So see how the words, the languages, the Manipravala has changed and gone, you know, from one part to another. I think it's a very fascinating, first, it's a very fascinating composition. You know, and those who even know Annamacharya Anupama have said, where did you get this composition? It's not in the books.
I said, it is it's in those 29 volumes.
It's in those 29 volumes.
29 volumes.
So, you know, I'm talking of singers and dancers and artists who are all like, where did you get this? Where did you get this composition from? So I think it's a delightful composition. I think there's a chance to have a lot of bhakti in it, because the bhakti comes from, of course, Annamacharya's steadfast devotion. And Andal is also like adores him, right?
Yes.
So but within that, it's like such playfulness. She's still young. You know, she's still young. She's not as mature and sedate as Alamelu Manga, you know. She knows that she's there, but she also has a little bit of impatience that he'll go away and when will I see him again? It's that kind of thing. So let me do everything I want this time. And so I love it. So, you know, I mean, scratching his cheek and all, I think is wonderful.
The right word, you know, you hit the right word. You know, when I did my Annamacharya Kriti, the first one, Sankeerthanam, the word that I used was playfulness. And I think that the idea of playfulness and all his songs, I think they come up even in the most Viraha songs, there's a little bit of, you know, that chanu, the playfulness, you know,
and the way he uses very important concepts like the Dashawataras, like, you know, these kind of concepts, he just manipulates them so beautifully to suit what, like, he makes it funny at points, he makes it so erotic at points. So there is, like, for example, there is one Dashavatara song which has 10 stanzas in which each avatara is equating to one Shringara act.
Wow.
So this is so typical Annamacharya. And I was just telling Ananda Akka that there is another song where he calls her Nanchari, which is actually encoded Dashavatara song.
See, we have one more composition up now.
There are two more actually. Maybe there are more. We have to search for them.
No, but I think, it's lovely because, you know, the possibility of, you know, Annamacharya was supposed to have walked on his knees up Tirumala. There's the possibilities for choreography and the possibilities of imagining the kind of Sharanagati bhakti that he had. Yes. And also, because he had that, gives him that confidence to actually get either worried or question, and what is going on? Why this? Yes. So even if you say Yenta Chenavu, so many ways you can ask, Yenta. Krishna, is this you? So there's so many ways in which you can, you know, play with the word. So I'm actually looking forward to opening up the dancers' minds, because you cannot play with a padartha, not with Annamacharya.
No.
You have to say what it is. But where can you play?
And in fact, that's my question. That's my question. Yes. You know, as a choreographer, as dancers, and I know your choreographies. You know, we've been following each other's trajectory for quite some time, a few decades now. and you've always used different mediums, different multimedia, different props, in making your composition literally come alive, as you said, plotting it and framing it and creating that design. So I'm sure Anupama will agree with me that I think all dancers out there are really excited as to see what you will do. So will you give us a peep into that?
I am definitely using a prop and definitely using a prop. I love the unstitched cloth, the idea of the unstitched cloth. I'm also going to suggest a more masculine silhouette for this piece for the dancers with the cloth, because it gives Annamacharya and Perumal that kind of, that kind of regal, that kind of slightly more, and also to show what is less and more, because Andal can be playful, she can be all over the place. So the prop will become a piece of fabric that can become the Angavastram and the sari pallu,
right.
And with then transforms her into that playful thing. I'm going to talk about a lot of Angika Abhinaya. Of course, Mukha Abhinaya is there, but how do you use Angika Abhinaya? And also, we have to be very careful, Ananda, that you cannot keep waving your hands this way, that way, you cannot do this.
Yes.
So Annamacharya is very respectful even, So he doesn't use one hand like this. It will have to be a question, it'll have to be this, but the face can say some other things. So I think that Loka Dharmi has to be curtailed. And even, where I think I'm going to interject, I said from theatre, is what are the images and metaphors that we can really write on? This is one possible, like if we take the Varaha Avataram, he rescues Tayar and he tells Tayar, I want to be worshipped best by music. Flowers, food and all his alankara is okay, but music is what I like.
Yes.
And Tayar listens and takes Avataram as Andal. Okay, this is so the Varaha Avataram becomes that moment, that moment for Andal herself. So this, of course, is a later legend. This is how they become conflated, Lakshmi and Andal. So in a sense, Alamelu Manga is Sri Devi and she's Bhudevi, if we want to look at it like that. So, of course, the twist comes at the end of the composition, which we won't give away.
Yes.
But definitely a prop, definitely a way of inhabiting a character. How will Annamacharya stand? I mean, Perumal is always stately. He's completely unperturbed. He's also watching this, his favorite devotee get all flustered, maybe a bit, and then he has to really sort of placate him at the end, and he's just enjoying all this. Remember that in the Andal, in the living tradition in Srivilliputtur, Andal cross dresses as Perumal. She takes his Pitambram and Ranganatha's on her lap. So that's a great image to use.
Yes.
He's on her lap and she's fanning him. I mean, look at that supreme moment where he has completely surrendered to her. So choreographically, I'm taking from the living traditions. I'm taking from living traditions of how Perumal and Andal are.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
That gives the dancer that freedom to make her the supreme at that moment in that scene.
Yes.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
Annamacharya has never seen his Srinivasa,
in such a state. In such a state.
Yes.
This is going to be such an interesting session. What do you think, Anupama? I mean, from Radha, you were talking of Radha.
Yes.
You were waiting like just last month. We were waiting for Radha. You were talking of Radha and the earth being herself and her being placed on Krishna, on Krishna. And now you have Varaha, where the earth is being lifted and earth is Bhudevi, and she becomes, she's Andal and she's. I mean, look at how the circle is nicely coming complete.
Yes. Absolutely.
Isn't that amazing? Isn't that? I mean, we didn't plan it like this, but it's all kind of falling together.
It's just falling into place like that. Yes.
And also, one thing I wanted to, which I will of course reinforce, I wanted to use the idea of a single image. Instead of having too many stories, too many images, take one single image and work with it. How can you explore a single image? Like what would be in that private chamber? We already have things of Kannadi, we have a mirror, because she says, Nappinai is what in Tamil we've called Nappinai Nangai, Thiruve Tuyil Yerai. Please wake your Lord up and send him to us. We are waiting to serve him. We have the fan is ready, the mirror is ready, the comb is ready, everything is ready. So in a sense, we could actually have Andal doing all that to Perumal, you see.
Yes.
So the possibilities are so immense, but I'm taking from traditions and words. So I feel that that is the context I want to tell dancers, like
Wonderful.
don't all over the place.
And since you also spoke about the Angika Abhinaya, I mean, not just the Mukha Abhinaya, I'm really excited to look forward to all the possible movement possibilities and the expression possibilities that Anita will bring to Tamrapatra. Don't you think so, Anupama? I think this is going to be one really exciting session.
It is. Yes.
Anita, we just can't wait. And I'm sure, you want to add anything else, Anupama, to this conversation?
No, I'm just looking forward to this entire trajectory. Yes. Absolutely.
And Anita, you want to say anything? Anything more?
No, I think that, this compositions like this particular composition, I actually find it flowing into another composition, I find it like after there's a resolution, and I feel that an Annamacharya composition somehow shouldn't be thrown into a Margam mix like that.
Yes, absolutely.
They need to stand alone. It has to be a standalone.
Yeah. To stand alone, and it because it has a kind of an operatic.
Yes,
absolutely.
Absolutely. You said the right word, operatic feel, right?
So it needs to at least two compositions to be able to get that feel. So the idea is to encourage dancers to get into that world, and to create in a sense of theater, to go into another, have one flow into another one, which can be purely bhakti. Yes. I found a beautiful one, Anupama, the one where he starts with just his padam, just describes all his padam in many ways. So beautiful, Can you imagine him doing a full Sharanagati and just looking at his feet?
Brahma Kadigina Padamu.
Yes, it's a beautiful one. So what I mean is to encourage them not to look at it as an item.
Yes.
But really to look at it as a little
as a continuous thought. Yes, as a continuous thought process.
Yeah. I mean, string it in a way that it becomes like a little ekaharya, or no. It'll be wonderful if that kind of flow happens.
For about 15-20 minutes, then you allow the audience also to get into a kind of a world, which I think is very important. Of course, we have it. Govinda, Venkateramana, Govinda, we always have that, right?
But Annamacharya Sankeerthanas do, they help. There are possibilities of mixing it into a nice ekaharya, weaving it into an ekaharya. Yes. Like, you remember Anupama, I've done that with Sringaradarpana.
Yes.
There are different Sankeerthanas, but then if you're intelligent enough to read all of them, not intelligent enough, patient enough to read all of them and connect it, weave it together. I think you have a standalone ekaharya coming up. I mean, just entry point can be one Sankirtana, and you can precede it and follow it with a bunch of Sankirtanas. So I think that's going to be the next project for you, Anita. Stringing together ekaharya after this. So this has been one amazing conversation. Tamrapatra Conversations 6. So all of you out there, the Tamrapatra session 5 with Dr. Anita Ratnam and Dr. Anupama Kylash.
And Andal.
And Andal.
He's coming
what
to
is Andal? Sorry.
He's coming to cause a little bit of havoc.
Okay. So she is coming. She is coming with Dr. Anita Ratnam and Anupama Kylash, Dr. Anupama Kylash at Tamrapatra Session 5 on November the 13th and 14th, same time, 7:30 p.m. So please go out there quickly and register. All registrations are almost full. So don't miss this extraordinary opportunity to add a beautiful Sankirtana, imagined, created, and choreographed by the one and only Dr. Anita Ratnam, who's bringing her many experiences, theatrical, her whole life of living with Andal to this exquisite Sankirtana. So thank you very much for being here with us at Tamrapatra Conversation. See you soon at Tamrapatra Session 5, Chudi Kodutanachiyaru with Andal, Anita and Anupama.
Arudu Talapaka Annamaya Padamulu